Hello and welcome to this session on agility for resiliency, going from physical to virtual in a post-COVID world. I'm Ian Fisher, I'm a director and EMEA solution lead for ISG, and I also run the collaboration and customer experience team in EMEA. COVID has hit us enormously across all our industries and organisations. Many have suffered significantly, but at least all have suffered somewhat. Our world has changed, and in terms of a post-COVID operating model, we've seen some significant changes in how a business runs, how it operates, and how it needs to deliver customer experience. A few months ago, on screen here, you see the way of working we all used to know. We sat around tables, we collaborated, we all worked in big, large groups in conference rooms, and we co-created on whiteboards and things like that. As of now, on the right, you'll see that our lives are all digital. We're all window boxes on a Teams or a Zoom or whatever conferencing solution you use, and we've had to adapt. No longer does business have the ability to say that change takes time. We have direct examples of where projects have had to be delivered in days, not weeks or months, but days. Moving people from office-based work to home-based work has had to happen overnight, and in some cases organisations have moved upwards of 95% of their organisation during the pandemic itself from an office base to a physical home base, and they had to deal with all the technology that went there. So our lives have changed. Our lives have changed significantly, and therefore the way customers interact with the business has changed too. That requires a change in operating model. So let's talk quickly about the economics of business and what's happened here. You'll see on the right hand side of this slide, this is the OECD latest projection announced on the 16th of September. Economically, a number of particular shock curves were predicted, either a V, a U, or an L, and I won't go into the detail, but what we have been shown as actual data here is a U shape. U shape is average, it's not bad, it's not great, but it has the tendency to go to what they call an L shape, which plateaus at the bottom, and that is a bad thing. So you'll see here on the right hand side, the OECD has predicted a significant drop in GDP and actual money passing through the global economy. And the shortfall is predicted around $7 trillion. That's about £600 or $900 per every man, woman and child that is on the planet. They've predicted a number of scenarios, and this is around how the economics, the world economics that we need to deal with and how business is going to operate. There isn't going to be the amount of money we had in the world economy that we knew before, and that's borne out by real life data. In the UK, as we've said before, almost a quarter of all industry had to pause or temporarily stop trading. More than half saw a reduction in turnover, which we'll see here. Money just dried up. The financial markets suffered significantly, and in some cases whole industries collapsed, like the aviation and hotel industry. They all went down very, very deeply. In those businesses and others, we've seen up to a quarter, 24% is the actual figure, have had disruption to their supply chain, whether through third parties or in their own supply chain themselves. And that is through no fault of their own. That is therefore their suppliers being unable to cope. And this is the daisy chain effect that we're starting to see. So when you think about your operating model in a post-COVID world, it's not just about you and your organisation, it's about your organisation's suppliers as well. On top of that, we've had people having to pay more for the same service while having to charge less, and therefore that has a significant impact on balance sheets. That requires a change in profile of people, and that requires therefore a change in operating model, and because that's driven by money, really, how you're going to deliver it. But the customers still want to buy things, and the customers still need delivery, whatever that service or product is. So you have to deliver. How to deliver, how to change. So a question is really, have you assessed the impact of the change on your business, your organisation? So we here at ISG, we've created this flowchart on the right hand side, and what it allows you to do is really do four things. It walks you through a post-COVID world as to say, have you had an impact? Yes, no, maybe. Genuinely, most people will go down the yes or the maybe. Very few will go down the no, and the reason most people don't go down the no is those are highly digital businesses, and not many exist. The likes of Amazon, Alibaba, those that are genuinely growing during the crisis, they are very digital and they have seen growth. In fact, the OECD and the World Economic Forum predict the only country that will come out of this ahead of where they went in is China. Every other country has dropped its predictions in terms of growth and GDP for I think about 5 to 10% over the long term. The 4 parts to go through this matrix, or this flowchart, are really to start at the top and work your way through. Some very simple questions about what failed, how it failed, and things that changed. It may not have failed, it may have adapted. And the learning process that the business has to go through to deliver products in a new way, in a new world, will require a new operating model change. So going through some of the things here, you see what you have to do is assess. Once you've followed through what actually went wrong, you need to undertake an assessment. So how did your organisation weather the storm effectively? How have you come out the other end? You then need to design, and that means understanding what needs to change and enabling your workforce to deliver that to the customer. That workforce is going to require new technology, new operating models, new processes, new ways of working. It may be at home, and that requires a new operation and a new operating model. You then have to adapt. You've got to make wholesale change to enable that customer journey and the consumption of your services to happen. And then you deploy it through the future workplace. That may be changes to business, that may be changes to property, that may be changes to employee structures, that may be changes to your entire business model. That will require technological change, that will require new channels to market, and therefore this simple graphic on the right, when you walk through it, has an output that says what you need to do for each thing. So it's quite a clever little graphic, but it allows you to think in such a way that you address the impact. There are several must-do activities that I believe you need to do in order to achieve digital agility. So really, first thing you need to do is understand the nature of work. Now, what do I mean by that? Post-COVID-19 workplace has changed significantly. It's not just about deploying technology. It's not just about deploying Microsoft Teams in a laptop. That was pretty much at-home remote working pre-COVID. What this now means is you need to actually understand how your business operates in the post-COVID world, how employees, how the workplace has fundamentally changed. I've been asked by clients before, about printer strategy and the level of detail and things they want to put into the office space. They haven't even considered how many people will come back to the office yet. So they're too down in the weeds without thinking strategically. So strategically, how has your workplace physically changed? So you need to assess what broke and ask the employees how they can help fix it, those that are going to be working at home, those that are going to be working in the office. The next thing to do is use data. So everything revolves around data. Don't make decisions without understanding why it happened, what happened, and what the data tells you did happen. So putting data at the heart of the design means understanding what levers you need to pull in order to be successful. It could be financial, technological, everything from rebaselining your costs, which could be sourcing or retendering, whatever that is, but you need to mitigate the risk to build a fighting fund, and that is data driven. Okay, so that is effectively mitigating risk through using data to understand the problem. The next is then to almost restart from a blank sheet of paper, is to design outside in, knowing your customer. Now, your customer, internal, external, drives really the process. We've said before in these summits that your customer is really only one click away from going to your competitor, and that is pretty much true. However, you need to understand what it is they want. There's very little point in designing a digital operating model if you don't really know who your customers are, what they buy and why they buy it, and what they want now. So decide aspects of your business model and channels to market that have changed or need to change. So it could be from, if you're retail, it could be from physical bricks and mortar to online channel. If you're supply of IT services or back office or help desk, it could be moving from waiting for people to pick up the phone, sitting in a building, to actually having virtual contact centers or virtual help desks, using technology and automation to automate some of that process. You can fundamentally change the way operations work, and this is the key of it. Next is to engage your employees. The number of organizations that I've spoken to who are interested in what the employees think is growing, but there's a large proportion who haven't considered it yet, and that means you need to know what people are finding. So as an example, a real world example, a bank that I've been talking to sent everyone home, but didn't provide access to all the systems that customers required, like customer services, complaints, access to accounts, account opening. That stifled account generation. That stifles, primarily part of their business. So by not asking the employees how they need to work, 3 months on into the crisis, they were still floundering, and 1 in 10 customers could not open an account. And given the number of accounts they had, this is a major UK bank, that is a significant issue. So engage the people who engage your customers, and understand what has to happen. Remove barriers so that collaboration can occur. Don't, before where we had a 6-month project that now had to be done in 2, securely and risk managed deploy these projects, but make sure they're collaborative and listen to what the employees want. They're dealing with your customers every day, and that should drive your new operating model to make sure it meets future customer demand, because if the customer doesn't like it or want to use it, they're going to go elsewhere. The final one is to iterate and innovate. This isn't going to stand still. We are 6 months into COVID-19. Every day on the news you hear about other things that come out on, the scaremongering that comes out and everything that comes out from China and all these other places about new, COVID-20 or all these other viruses. It doesn't have to be biological. This could be a wholesale technological change. This could be, year 2000. That was a major issue as well. There's things that happen on a cyclical basis. So just point fixing now and not expecting another major change, it will be short-sighted. So encourage really to iterate and innovate, and those who build an agile model going forward will start to succeed. This tube map that we've shown before many times on digital agility is still the future operation. ISG has run research, and we've put up all the bubbles that you see here. Everything from the left-hand side around market insights, top down about using data, bottom up engaging your partners and ecosystems, and from the right, about having digital agility and operating model change. Everything we've just kind of spoken about. The poll showed that there was no outlier or no single thing that had to be done first. It all came across as very high level and all scored highly. So all of this still needs to get done. The question now is around really focusing on the middle, your products and your business model, leading to an operating model, that line across the middle. And that is driven by the bits at the front end, the market intelligence, the technology that's coming out to deploy new models. It's about engaging your partners. It's using real-time data to understand change. And it's also looking at your operating model itself to work out what broke. So everything we've just discussed, absolutely still vital. But it has adapted somewhat to be more collaborative. So you have to build this in. And here's a simple mosaic. The future of work really revolves around 6 things. So it's the office of the future, how your employees are going to work. When I say office, an office is now your home as well, just like I'm sitting at home. It's about an employee of the future. How are they going to work? Not just where they work, but how. Are they going to be flexible? Are they going to be fixed? We call it the Uberization. They need always on IT. If they can't work where they want, when they want, this won't work. They have to be collaborative, and that includes in the physical space. So it could be creating and readapting your physical workspace to become much more collaborative and have zones or whiteboard rooms, whatever else it is, obviously respecting social distancing where required, and that is, or against government guidelines, and that is where employees will still engage and become collaborative. So this is a hybrid model that allows you to redesign your operating model in such a way that employees are at the heart of the change and employees are delivering what needs to be done. And the final thing is engagement, both the employee and the second last thing is engagement, which is the employee and the internal and external customer. The experience which is delivered is the key thing here. If you go through this entire cycle and you don't address your key experience, so boosting digital presence or understanding the tools and simple functionality, you could go through this entire thing and produce something at the end that has no customer value, and therefore it's been a waste of time. So strongly encouraged to use customer survey and customer models to understand and listen to what the customer wants, and that is how it's delivered. So you can see here on the screen we have a number of key requirements that lead to the opportunities that we've talked about before in several of our webinars and summers at ISG, and that leads to the features and benefits, and there are a large number which we'd be happy to talk to you about. So there's things to think about right now, and they really fall into 3 categories. There's mindset, there's structure, and there's then obviously profitability, because if we're not doing this to make money and to be profitable, then unless we're a third sector or charity, then you're going to be neutral or lose money. The mindset piece is where we need to focus first, and that is about the human side. So empowering employees who are not just sent home to deal with them in difficult situations and customers who are getting annoyed. It's about empowering them to deliver customer and consumer outcomes whilst giving them sort of entrepreneurship, so giving them able to create new things, let them flourish. By designing that into self-organizing teams, they will adapt, they will promote, they will continue to evolve, and that is how you get the iterate and continue to innovate and iterate. That will then reshape them, because they will come up with new ideas that requires new technologies, and therefore they allows further continual improvement. This is a cycle. In terms of structure, Your ecosystem, as we said with the flowchart, has to be looked at end to end. And that is all value chain partners, that is all suppliers, that is all internal providers, that is all teams, to understand what worked, what didn't work, and make sure all of them are aligned in the customer direction, or whatever that may be. So really is to listen to the customer. The customer will define what it is they need and want, and if they don't want your service or product, they won't buy it. So there's therefore a modular thing, a construction that allows you to then monetize key products. What we saw in the tube map was what we call product aligned delivery. It's monetized, it's on off, and when products go through their life cycle or services duck down or come back down to zero, then they get switched off, or they get archived until the demand comes back. Uberization. So we've mentioned this before. This is the Uberization of the workforce. So just like the private hire car firm, deciding where and when you want to work, having a fluid workforce that comes and picks up peaks and troughs is going to be crucial, because no longer can you afford to have employees sitting in offices or even at home doing nothing. They have to have the ability to pick up work as it comes, and therefore new systems, new ways of measurement, new KPIs, and also new productivity tools will be being defined. Profitability. So we come to the last three. So sustainability, it has to be delivered at a lower cost. If you end up designing a process that uses the same amount of people in a remote environment, we've technically failed, because now we have the opportunity through technology to make sure that the economic shock, because the money, as I said, isn't going to be there, the economic shock is mitigated for your organisation because you're offering the same or better service at a lower cost price or a lowest cost point. That requires a rethink of your internal structure to make sure that the scarcity of money that will be out there, and when we get into single, double dip recessions that will no doubtedly come down the line in EMEA, we need to make sure that we're capturing as much of that wallet as possible. If you do that, making a sticky customer experience, you will experience growth. If you're in decline right now, changing from a physical bricks and mortar or a non-digital operating model to a digital operating model means that you will start to see growth, because you may not grow your revenue to start with, but you will reduce your cost. That will then allow you to fight the fire, and then change the way you operate with customers will then bring them back to produce growth. So you can't do this without innovation. And finally, using existing assets, you're going to have to sweat the asset a bit longer. And that could be in terms of the service you have, it could be the features, the functions, anything you have, or you're captive. You're going to have to be more innovative with the assets you've already got, because development of new assets creates money until you've gone through the innovation cycle and the design cycle for your employees to have collaboratively helped you grow the business. So overall, those are the three things that you need to think about and take away. So think about the mindset of your organisation, how you're going to design a new operating model, the physical structure of a post-COVID operating model, and then finally understand how it is you make money, how it is you reduce cost, and how it is you sweat the asset to make sure you're more profitable. Thank you very much.